Place two indoor flowers on a table. They are the same kind, the same size when they started. One grows in a pot filled with soil. The other sits in a clear glass jar with only water around its roots. At first, both plants look almost the same. The leaves are small. The stems are thin. Nothing unusual appears during the first few days, but after a few weeks, something surprising begins to show. The plant growing in water starts to stretch a little taller. Its leaves slowly look wider. The stem becomes stronger. The plant in soil still grows, but more slowly. The difference is gentle, but easy to notice if you look closely. Many indoor gardeners have seen this happen, often without expecting it. If you have always used soil for your indoor flowers, that is completely normal. You are not doing anything wrong. Soil has helped plants grow for generations, and it still works very well in many homes. But sometimes, under indoor conditions, certain flowers respond differently. So their roots seem to enjoy the calm, open space that water provides. They spread more freely. They stay cleaner. And over time, the plant above the surface begins to show that quiet strength. This does not happen overnight. Plants move slowly. Weeks pass before the change becomes clear. Yet once you see it, the pattern becomes difficult to ignore. Before explaining why this worked, it helps to understand why soil became the usual way we grow plants indoors. For a long time, soil was simply the easiest choice. It was available everywhere. Gardeners trusted it because plants grow naturally in the ground. Bringing a small amount of that ground indoors seemed like the most natural solution. And in many ways, it still is. Soil holds nutrients. It holds moisture. It anchors the plant so it stands upright. For outdoor gardens, soil is the entire foundation of plant life. But indoor growing is a little different from the natural environment outside. Inside a home, soil sometimes brings small challenges. Over time, it can become compacted. Air spaces shrink. Water may drain unevenly. In some homes, tiny pests begin to appear in damp soil. Many gardeners have noticed this at least once. None of these problems mean soil is bad. They simply remind us that soil behaves differently in a pot than it does in a large garden bed. Because of this, some experienced growers quietly began experimenting with another idea many years ago. Instead of placing certain flowers directly into soil, they allowed the roots to sit in clean water first. They noticed something interesting. Roots did not struggle the way many people expected. In fact, in the right conditions, roots often stretched longer and smoother in water than they did in packed soil. This approach also removed a few indoor concerns. No loose dirt on the table, no compacted potting mix, and sometimes fewer pests. Over time, many growers kept this simple technique in their routine. Not for every plant, but for some flowers that adapted well to it. To understand why this works, it helps to look quietly at how roots behave. Roots do more than hold a plant upright. Their main job is to search. They search for moisture, oxygen, and nutrients. In soil, they weave through small spaces between particles, slowly expanding outward. But soil also creates resistance. The root must push and twist through that environment. Not water is very different. When roots sit in clean water, they feel almost no pressure around them. They can stretch in any direction. Instead of forcing their way through tight spaces, they simply extend outward. Another important factor is oxygen. Many people think roots only need water, but they also need air. When water is fresh and lightly exposed to air, oxygen dissolves into it. Roots absorb that oxygen quietly while they grow. Light also plays a gentle role. When roots receive some indirect light through a glass container, growers can observe them easily. Healthy roots appear pale and firm. This simple view helps people understand what the plant is doing beneath the surface. Without heavy soil pressing against them, some roots grow long and smooth. And when roots are comfortable, the plant above often becomes stronger. There is one insight that experienced growers began to notice again and again. And certain flowers seem to prefer starting in water before they ever touch soil. Not every plant behaves this way, but several familiar indoor flowers respond very well to this environment, especially when they are young or newly started. When a cutting or young stem first begins forming roots, water can provide a gentle beginning. The roots spread easily. They do not need to struggle through compact material. The plant focuses its energy on building those early root structures. Gardeners have observed this pattern with several popular indoor flowers, Plants like peace lilies, certain begonias, and a few vining flowers often begin life in water containers before being moved into pots later. Some growers even keep them in water long term. The reason is not magic, it is simply observation repeated over many seasons. When roots start freely, the plant often responds with stronger leaves and fuller blooms later. Once this idea becomes clear, the rest of the method feels simple. Instead of a pot filled with soil, many growers begin with something much lighter. A clear glass jar, a small vase, even a simple drinking glass can work. The container does not need to be large. What matters more is being able to see the water and watch the roots. Clear containers make this very easy. Only part of the stem should sit in the water. The leaves remain above the surface. This keeps the plant breathing comfortably while the roots begin their quiet work below. The water level usually sits just high enough to touch the lower stem where roots can form. If the entire plant sits too deeply in water, the stem may stay too wet. Keeping the balance gentle is often enough. Light also matters here, but not in a demanding way. Most indoor flowers prefer bright but indirect light. A window that receives soft daylight works well for many homes. Direct hot sunlight can warm the water too quickly, but a calm, bright room usually gives the plant everything it needs. As the days pass, the roots slowly appear. At first they are small threads, then they grow longer. Sometimes they twist gently around each other inside the glass. Watching this process can be very relaxing. There is, however, one small habit that sometimes slows these plants down. It happens when water sits unchanged for too long. Over time, water that never moves begins to lose oxygen. Tiny particles collect inside it. The roots remain alive, but they may slow their growth. Many beginners think the plant is struggling, when in reality the water simply needs refreshing. Changing the water occasionally allows fresh oxygen to return. The roots often respond quickly with new growth once that happens. There is no need to rush or worry. Plants move at their own pace. A calm observation every so often is usually enough. Another factor worth mentioning is temperature inside the home. In warmer rooms, water warms faster. Warm water can lose oxygen more quickly. In these conditions, plants sometimes appreciate fresh water a bit more often. In cooler homes, the opposite can happen. Growth slows naturally because cooler temperatures reduce plant activity. This does not mean the plant is unhealthy. It simply means it is resting a little longer between growth stages. Homes in colder climates may notice slower root development during winter months. As spring light returns, growth often becomes more active again. This natural rhythm happens with many indoor plants, whether they grow in soil or water. When the environment suits the plant, a few quiet signs begin to appear. Healthy roots often look pale and smooth. They may grow longer week by week. Leaves above the water stay firm and open toward the light. The stem thickens slightly. New leaves begin to appear more regularly. These changes do not happen all at once. Plants rarely rush, but steady progress is usually easy to see when you look back after several weeks. Sometimes beginners worry if nothing dramatic happens in the first days. That concern is very common. Plants simply move on a slower clock than we do. A gentle approach works best. Watch the roots, notice the leaves, allow the plant time to adjust to its environment. If the water remains clear and the leaves look comfortable, the plant is usually doing exactly what it should. At this point, many people begin wondering which flowers might respond well to this idea. If you feel curious, you might already have a plant in your home that could try this method. Some growers enjoy experimenting with a single cutting, just to observe what happens. There is no pressure to change your entire routine. If you have ever seen a flower grow in water, or if you are thinking about trying it one day, you might share your thoughts in the comments. Many gardeners enjoy hearing what others have observed in their own homes. Sometimes the simplest ideas spread this way, one quiet experience at a time. In the end, this approach reminds us of something gentle about gardening. Plants do not always need complicated systems. They do not always need constant adjustments. Often they respond best when we provide a calm environment and allow them to adapt. Growing flowers in water can remove some of the small challenges that come with indoor soil. There is less mess, fewer heavy pots to move, and a clear window into how the roots are developing. For many people, it becomes less about managing the plant and more about observing it. You watch the roots stretch slowly through the water. You see the leaves open toward the light. And you realize the plant understands its own rhythm very well. Sometimes the most helpful gardening idea is simply stepping back, doing a little less, and allowing nature to do a little more. In many homes, that quiet balance leads to the same simple result. Do less, get more.